Hello, can you hear me? Thank you so much for making time to come for our GCF event. I'm Desmond Atukumsin, a leader of GCF, and we have some amazing leaders as well. We have Karis, one of our leaders here as well, and you are all welcome. I want us to feel free. There's a casual talk that we are going to have. There's some few house rules. Then I will just leave it for the speaker to take over. So first of all, fire exits. Where we came from, that's one of the fire exits as well. There's also a fire exit here. So we should not hear any alarm tonight. If you hear any alarm, don't panic, don't be afraid. Just move straight to this place and don't park yourself at the road, even though it's not a busy road. We've been told that we need to move to the back of this building. Washrooms, we also have washrooms just behind us over here. So I think the ladies' washroom is just opposite this room. And the guys have to go on your right as well. We still have tea and coffee. So when we start and you still want to grab a tea or coffee, please do not hesitate. Just go for it. Yeah. Then we'll be live streaming this. We have people who are joining us online, and we'll also be taking pictures as well. So if you don't want to be part of any picture, and if your picture is taken, you can just send us a message, and we'll just take you out of it. So you are not under any pressure that they've taken your picture, so you are going to use. If you don't think that you don't want us to use your picture for any publicity or anything, just let us know as well. Then we'll have a Q&A time. So the speaker will be talking for about 30 minutes. Then after that, we'll have a Q&A time. We have a lot of questions that you wonderful people send to us. Yeah, but we also want to give you time to ask personal questions here. So during the Q&A, we will mention some of the questions from what we have. Then if you have any questions, we will give priority to those who are here to ask the questions as well. Okay, so a little bit about GCF before we move on to the main thing. So GCF is a Christian fellowship, and we aim to have spirit-filled, mature Christian graduates who represent Christ in every facet of their lives. We want people to have a Christ-like life in their campuses and when they graduate in their offices and wherever they find themselves as well. And we want to unite and equip Christians, or especially postgrads here in London, with the gospel, and so that they can also present the gospel confidently, lovingly, and persuasively. They can also share and implement the best strategies for reaching their own colleagues and friends for Christ. Then also to develop their gifts and abilities in their unique vocations and callings as well. So GCF, we have these 5 key pillars that we normally go by, and that's thinking, questioning, exploring, believing, and living. So we want people to think about their worldview. Whether you're a Christian or not a Christian, why do you believe what you believe? It's something that most people think that faith comes without reasoning. But you need to think about why you believe what you believe. You need to question it as well. Questioning your worldview doesn't mean that for a Christian or for any other religious person, doesn't mean that you are blaspheming or anything. You're asking the honest questions about why is this so. Then through that, you begin to explore it further. And through that, and in Christian worldview, we believe in the conviction of the Holy Spirit that helps you to believe and trust in the message of the gospel. And then you begin to live it out. So this is the 5 main pillars that we stand by as Graduate Christian Fellowship. And we normally meet on Sundays, and some of the topics that we'll be having, and if you want to join us, theism versus atheism. I think some of your questions will touch on this after the talk. Christianity versus worldview. So if you have questions about this, you can come to our meetings and we can explore more. Fundamental beliefs in Christianity, the deity of Jesus. We know that we have a historic Jesus who was human. Do we know about his deity? Then we have the what is question. What is truth? Is truth subjective or objective? What is good? Most people say I'm good. What do we mean by good? And how do we define what worship is as well? So we also have, we are not only academic and thinkers, we also do socials, and we go to trips as well. So one of our main trips is Cambridge trip. And once a year, we have a partnership with Tyndale House. It's a biblical institute in Cambridge. And I don't know if this is working. Oh, okay. I guess not. Okay, let me see if I can go back to this. Yes. Yeah, so Peter Williamson Decker, the principal of Tyndale House, and last 2 years we went there too, and they gave us a talk about the reliability of the Gospels. And last year, Tony Watkins talked about the prophecy, the Old Testament prophecy, and how it links to modernity. So we also have a Christian Heritage Tour that you are all invited to come as well. And this coming year, next year, February, we'll be having our next trip. We also do socializations. So we have our favorite spot in Wetherspoons near Bank. Those who are in Trinity Church know about Wetherspoons a lot. We also have weekend away. So I'll talk more about the weekend away in connection to the church that we are part of. So Trinity Church Central London is a church that GCF is part of, and we meet at St. Margaret. It's just beside the Bank of England. It's just a 5-minute walk from exit 1 or exit 2. And going back to this, you see this nice, amazing picture here of yeah. We do weekend away where we leave the busyness of London to the countryside just to decompress and also read scripture and study. And if you're a postgrad and want to do your write-up or something, you can join us and come for this as well. So we meet at Sundays 10:30 to 12 p.m. And prior to that, we GCF, we meet 9 a.m. to 10:20 at the same venue. And we have hot breakfast. So if you're interested to join us, just let us know. We have some flyers behind which we can give to you. Okay, so with that said, we'll move to the talk. And I think it's a privilege for us to have Professor Schaefer amongst us. And I'll just introduce him so he will come in for the next 30 minutes, take over. So Dr. Schaefer, Professor Schaefer, has authored over 1,700 scientific publications in the field of computational quantum chemistry. He's widely regarded in his field for the groundbreaking and pushing the boundaries of molecular quantum mechanics. His contributions are numerous, and he's celebrated globally. So I'll just mention one of the few key ones. So there are some conferences that have been held in his honor. One of them was in Korea in 2004. And in 2019, there was also a conference in American Chemical Society symposium to honor him as well. He has mentored over 133 successful PhD students and 55 postdocs. And also he has also mentored a lot of many visiting professors. Most of his students are now having key distinguished positions in academia, in the industry, and the government. He has also received a lot of awards, and I'll just mention just a few of them. One of the major awards that he received was the Schrödinger Medal. If anyone know about the Schrödinger. And also, he also received the American Chemical Society Award in Pure Chemistry in 1979. And a gold medal from the American Institute of Chemists, and it's an honor shared by Nobel laureates as well. He has been awarded 31 honorary degrees from institutions around the world, and most importantly, he's a man of faith who takes his faith seriously. So without much ado, I want us to give a warm welcome to Dr. Schaefer.
little bit more toward that. Oh, no, that way. That way, yeah. That's perfect. Okay. Great. Good evening. Thank you, Desmond. We had a nice ride over here in Uber, and he and I have corresponded a bit in the last few days as well. So I landed in Heathrow about 5 hours ago. I got a good sleep on the plane, so that will not be excuse if this fails. I'm here, paid for by the Royal Society of Chemistry. You should have all your events paid for by the Royal Society of Chemistry. One of their journals is called Physical Chemistry, Chemical Physics, and I'm one of the editors of that journal, and we meet once or twice a year here. Now, Desmond has told me to speak for 30 minutes. This lecture goes for an hour and a half. I'm going to have to be very, very selective and leave out one of the parts that you would definitely like the best. Now, let's get started. This is where we work. This is a building constructed just for research in computational quantum chemistry. Wonderful place to work, and here are the people that do the work. These are my PhD students and a couple of undergraduates as well. So it's a wonderful group of young people to work with, and anything you see my name on it is due to one or more of these students. Okay. Yes, I'm going to begin with some general, I'm not going to tell you very much about my life because Desmond has not given me much time. But let me make a few general comments, which may actually, he's given me this long list of questions I'm supposed to answer. And I need to be back before midnight, so I'll be ready for my meeting tomorrow morning. But just a few general comments. Schrodinger has been mentioned, founder of wave mechanics, originator of Schrodinger equation, describing quantum behavior of electrons and molecules. And this is a statement by Schrodinger which is good. I teach a course at my university with the title C.S. Lewis, Science and Scientism. Scientism is a word that C.S. Lewis uses, especially in his space trilogy. It means that nothing but science. Nothing but science. Nothing else is of any value at all except science and scientific measurements. And Schrodinger says that's not true. He says, I'm astonished. Scientific picture of the real world around me is very deficient. In other words, less than good. It gives a lot of factual information, puts all our experience in a magnificently consistent order, but it is silent about everything that is really near to our hearts, that really matters to us. Science can't tell us a word about red and blue, bitter and sweet, physical pain, physical delight. It knows nothing of beauty and ugly, good or bad, God and eternity. And then this is an interesting question. Science, and you hear people doing this all the time, begins with Richard Dawkins and then down from there. Science sometimes pretends to answer questions in these domains, these questions of meaning and beauty and good. But the answers are very often so silly that we're not inclined to take them seriously. That's from an old book. This is going to answer one of your questions. See, I've been studying these questions. I only got them yesterday, but I've been studying these questions. And one of the questions is, why should a scientist believe in God? Isn't that one of them? Yeah. And Eugene Wigner, Nobel Prize winner in physics, a Christian, once noted what he called the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics. Now, I have had students who insisted that mathematics was not unreasonably effective. But it wasn't the problem with the mathematics, it was that they weren't very good at mathematics. The unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics, Wigner remarked, the miracle of the appropriateness of the language of mathematics for the formulation of the laws of physics is a wonderful gift that we can neither understand nor deserve. Now, when there's a gift, there's a giver, and obviously in the mind of Wigner, the giver was God. So, yes, how can physics and chemistry and mathematics explain things so well and make predictions about things before they happen, because it's all part of God's plan. Rick Smalley was a dear friend of mine, father of nanotechnology, Nobel Prize in Chemistry, 1996. We were good friends. He was very outspoken as an atheist. I was not secretive about being a believer in Jesus. And when we met, Smalley would say to me, "Schaefer, are you still a Christian?" I said, "Yes." "Smalley, you're still an atheist?" He said, "Of course." And that's the way these conversations went on for years until about 5 years before he passed, and things changed in a remarkable way. Smalley says this: "Recently I've gone back to church regularly, Second Baptist Church in Houston, Texas. He hadn't been to church in 40 years. Recently I've gone back to church, but with a new focus to understand as best I can what is it that makes Christianity so vital and powerful in the lives of billions of people today, even though almost 2,000 years have passed since the death and resurrection of Christ. Although I suspect I will never fully understand, I now think the answer is very simple. It is true." Rick Smalley, renowned atheist. At his funeral ceremony in a huge church in Houston, many atheists came, and they were able to speak about how such a change had occurred in Rick Smalley's life. Charles Towns, professor of physics at Berkeley, Nobel Prize in Physics, 1964, discovered the laser. I overlapped with Charles Towns quite a bit. When I was an undergraduate at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the greatest nerd school in the universe. Yes, I am a nerd. Unapologetic nerd. He had already done the work for which he was going to get the Nobel Prize. He got the Nobel Prize while he was at MIT, but he wasn't doing any science at MIT. He was the provost, which is the #2 officer in the university. Well, he did that for a couple of years. He hated it. He said, "This is just horrible, being an administrator." So he moved to Berkeley 3 years before I got there to become the most famous member of the faculty. And this is from a book of his called Making Waves. Now, the waves are the lasers, okay? He's not saying that he's so important. He talks about making lasers. He says this: "In my view, the question of origin," and that's something on your list. It's on your list, Desmond. Has anybody else seen this list? Well, if I answer all these questions, we're going to be here till midnight, I'll tell you. This is going to go on for a long time. Charles Towns says, "In my view, the question of origin seems always left unanswered if we explore from a scientific view alone. Thus, I believe there's a need for some religious, metaphysical explanation. I believe in the concept of God and in his existence." Charles Towns was quite outspoken as a Christian. William Phillips, a good bit younger, Nobel Prize in 1997 for the development of methods to trap and cool atoms with laser light. There are a lot of these people who are these scientists who are Christians who are laser people and nano people. The day he got the Nobel Prize, he said this at a conference: "God has given us an incredibly fascinating world to live in and explore." News conference where he was participating in a conference on high-powered telescopes, and that's on the first page of the London Times. If you turn to page 8, it gives more information about the story. It shows that he is a member of a multiracial church in Gaithersburg, Maryland, about 20 miles north of Washington, D.C., teaches Sunday school and leads Bible studies. And if you keep reading, you find out one thing about his life that I think is fascinating. Every Saturday afternoon, he and his wife drive into downtown Washington, D.C., and pick up an 80-year-old African-American lady who's blind. And they take her out, and they do her shopping for her for a week, and they take her to dinner, and then they think, well, that's ideal. Saturday Night Live for Phillips and his wife. And I think it shows you some genuineness. This lecture has 5 parts. Coming-of-age story. The love story is the best part of this, and you're not going to get it. It takes 10 minutes, and we'll have to use up some of that that question time Desmond gave. Story of faith, story of international scientific collaboration. You're not going to get that either. That won't fit. There's a lot of this stuff that won't fit. Okay, so I was born in Michigan. My parents were not Christians. Both were graduates of the University of Michigan. We moved to Syracuse, New York for a few years. I don't remember much except there's a lot of snow in Syracuse, New York. And at that age, I loved it. I no longer enjoy snow. Then the promised land, Silicon Valley, Menlo Park, California. We lived right next to Stanford University. It was just a great place for a kid to grow up. The Stanford campus is just beautiful. I'll say more about that in a little bit. Now, so what am I? 14 years old. Moving from the promised land, Silicon Valley, back to Michigan, where my parents came from. I had not given much thought to deep questions such as some of these. Is there anything beyond the universe we know? That's one of your questions. Y'all don't know. He's given me 25 questions. They're dense. They're dense. Is there anything beyond the universe we know? Is there a purpose to the universe? That's not one of your questions. Is there a purpose to human life? That's not one of your questions either. Does God exist? That's one of your questions. Is there life after death? That's involved in one of your questions. I'm ready for these questions. These slides were made up a couple months ago. I'm ready, Desmond. I'm not ready for all of them, but we'll see. He's going to have to be selective about which of these questions he asks me. So I'm in Michigan. 5 years, went to high school there. It was okay. And that is part of the love story that you're not going to get. Sorry. Age 17, I'm in high school, American high school. Begin to think seriously about ultimate questions. This began a search that led 11 years later to my becoming a Christian. So there's a long delta T time interval here. I did begin to read the Bible at age 17, a chapter a day. You'll get through the Bible in 4 years at that rate. I did this for two reasons. I was completely ignorant of the Bible, let me say that first. I knew it was the most important book. I mean, I heard that from many sources. And I didn't know much about Jesus, but I was convinced that he was unlike anybody I'd ever met or read about. So here I am reading the Bible. My father wanted me either to go to Stanford University, we'd lived right next to it for 5 years, beautiful campus, lovely place, or MIT, the great nerd school of the university. My father was a civil engineer, so he was not a nerd, though. I really do have nerd qualifications. In my first year in high school, I tried out for the basketball team. I was the second tallest kid in the whole high school. I couldn't make the basketball team for two fundamental reasons. I couldn't jump and I couldn't run. I am a nerd. Now, if we come back to the love story, that'll figure that out. I wanted to be a nerd, except both went to MIT. So here I'm at MIT for 4 years. The MIT campus, has anybody been there? Has anybody been to MIT? Oh, thank goodness, it's so ugly. The campus is this is the only good-looking building on the campus. The great dome, the library is right underneath it. Spent many hours there. All the rest of the buildings are just very ugly. The main building is about a half mile long. It looks much more like a prison than a university building. They've built a lot of new buildings since then. They're equally ugly. It's just a horrible, horrible campus, visually. First 2 years, first year was a little disappointing. Grades only average. I was used to being a good student. But the second year, a remarkable transformation took place. I became one of the best students at MIT. And I initially was very surprised. At the end of the first half of my second year, I thought that I couldn't have possibly gotten these grades. They don't belong to me. But eventually, I came to realize that many of my classmates at MIT had come from all science high schools. All they studied were science high schools, such as the Bronx School of Science in New York City, which has produced 16 Nobel Prize winners. My educational background was much weaker. More than half of these students at MIT, all the courses they were taking the first year, they'd already had them. It was just a review, and they were knocking it dead. Well, I'd not had them, and I was not knocking it dead. But it took me a year to catch up, and that was good. So, and I'm sure teachers, we're going to skip these. I have to say something about George Whitesides. George Whitesides is the most highly cited scientist in the world. He's gone from organometallic chemistry to nano and everything in between. He does medicine things now too. He was, during my second year at MIT, I was in organic chemistry lab. And I won't say that I was bad in the lab, but I was slow getting things done. And one day, I was in the lab at the bench, one nerd on this side, another nerd on this side, and my flask begins to smell rather badly. And the two nerds said, "You really should take that over the hood." The hood, for those who don't, there's a place where you put things that are dangerous. It didn't bother me. I said, chemistry makes smells. Nothing to worry about. And they said, "Well, why aren't ours smelling then, since we're all supposed to be doing the same thing?" Then it became very hot. And then even I realized it was time to take the hood. Enormous explosion. Well, Whitesides, super famous now, he was in charge of the lab. He came walking down the hall and looked at me and said, "Schaefer, this one event by you has used up all the laboratory fees for the entire year this year." And I said, "I'm sorry." And then he made this remarkable statement that predicted my future. Seeing that I was a bit efficient in the lab, he said, "Schaefer, have you ever considered theoretical chemistry?" I didn't know there's any such thing as theoretical chemistry. That's what I've been doing all my life since then. So he predicted my future. This is it's part of the love story. Sorry, not gonna get it. Not gonna get it. No. Not even gonna see her picture. No. It's such a good story. We decided to go to Stanford for reasons which are part of the love story, which I can't tell you. So I was there for 2.5 years, and my boss, Frank Harris, moved to the University of Utah. So I needed to graduate in a hurry. That's the Stanford Memorial Church, probably the most visible feature of the campus. It's got a picture up at the top of Jesus and his closest friends. It's the end of. Has anybody been to Stanford University? That is a beautiful campus. You should go there. It's a beautiful campus. Many thousands of acres. Teachers at Stanford. We won't talk about any of these. Nope. I had to graduate in a hurry. Now, this is an important date in my life. Easter Sunday, 1969. My wife and I attended, in the U.S. You're expecting to be church, Christmas, Easter. That used to be true in the U.K. as well. I don't know if it's still true. It's not so true in the U.S. as it was. But at that point, if you were a civilized person, you had to show up, make an appearance. Beautiful little redwood church right across from the Stanford Linear Accelerator. Just a wonderful church. And the minister opened his speech by words which have deeply influenced my life. And here's what he said. He said, he was an English person. His name was John Burns. He was from England. He was just over in the U.S. for a little while. He said the Christian faith, actually what he said is that the Christian faith is a sham if Jesus Christ did not rise physically from the dead. I was stunned by that statement. I stayed around, which required a little bit of I had to keep back. A lot of people wanted to talk to him after Easter Sunday service. Anyway, the others left. My wife and I were there, and I said, "Mr. Burns, do you really believe?" I said, "That first sentence of your message really struck me. Do you really believe that's true?" And he said, "Yes, I do." He said to me, "Do you believe it's true?" So I don't know. I haven't given serious thought before. He said, "You should," and suggested some things to read, which I didn't immediately pounce on, but in time, be patient. So that was, still searching. Beginning that day, I did begin to consider the historical evidence for the resurrection of Jesus Christ. I'm still 4 years away from becoming a Christian. 4 years to go. Well, I become a professor. Okay, I needed to graduate. I graduated. Interviewed for faculty positions at MIT. Berkeley and Harvard, and went to Berkeley. Had a great offer from what was then the most outstanding chemistry department in the world. When I left, it sunk a little bit. Back to number one now. They obviously didn't need me that much. And I accepted at age 24. I became the youngest professor on the Berkeley campus. But this I can't skip. I replaced a person who became much more famous than I. Mathematics professor. He had begun 2 years earlier at the age of 24. He'd been the youngest professor at Berkeley for the 2 years before I did. He left now. He had some problems. He hated students. It was reciprocal. They hated him. He hated faculty. It was reciprocal. They hated him. So after 2 years there, he told the dean, I'm sorry, but this isn't my kind of place, I'm going somewhere else. And the dean begged him to stay. He said, Kaczynski, we'll put you in an ivory tower. You will never be bothered by another student or another faculty member. Just do your mathematics and get the Fields Prize. The Fields Medal is equivalent to the Nobel Prize in mathematics. He said, nope, I'm gone. That's what he looked like when he was at Berkeley. Clean-cut man, 24 years old. A few years later, doesn't look so good. He becomes the Unabomber. Oh, this is not funny for people that were involved, but his mom murdered 3 professors and did great damage to many others. We can talk about him. You can find movies about him if you're interested in him. I replaced him. Okay, so here I am. I'm there for 18 years with a better result than Kaczynski had. Mathematics is just right across the road from us, though, so it wasn't close. Here's the campus of Berkeley. It's a beautiful campus, right from Telegraph Avenue. Now, that's going to have to wait, too. We're not going to talk about chemistry. That's going to wait. Sorry. Okay, so, see, they've got a lot of other things they could ask for. But the love story is the best. During my 3rd year on the faculty, historical evidence compelled me to accept the truth of the physical resurrection of Jesus Christ. I finally understood that the resurrection of Christ is one of the best attested facts in all of ancient history. It took another year before I received Jesus Christ into my life. A number of things began to change. My life had a purpose, which was to know Christ and to make Him known. I teach this C.S. Lewis class, and one of the books of his that I like is C.S. Lewis wrote an autobiography of the first half of his life. It's called Surprised by Joy. Anybody read it? It's pretty good. It's pretty good. He talks about this concept of joy, and that's what happened to me when Jesus came into my life. Joy arrived, and it's never left. Berkeley faculty in '86, a whole bunch of Nobel Prizes in there. We don't have time to talk about it. Colleagues at Berkeley, wonderful friends there. I still go back. It's been a long time since I was professor there. I still go back. Still have a lot of friends there. I went to the University of Texas for a year. That was a year of rebellion. But I went back. I had a great position there. Went back. Berkeley doubled my salary. I went back. Then I moved to the University of Georgia in 1987, which is a pretty neat place, actually. We have a lot of people from England that come visit us. I have a great position there. I showed you the building they built for us. My wife and I had 4 young children. Actually, when we moved to Georgia, our youngest was 9 years old. Wanted to live in a quieter place than Berkeley, in Athens, Georgia. This is a great college town. In America, we have college towns. I don't think you have anything quite like that.
Oxford,
Yeah.
and Cambridge.
Cambridge is more like a college town. Yeah, like a college town. And this is the main student street. It's so cool. I won't talk about my colleagues there. I don't think I'm going to talk about this either. But in fact, I'm getting getting ready to finish this. Yeah, he said a half hour. I've got 3 minutes to go. One of the great joys in the life of a scientist is the ability to travel and collaborate with scientists in many countries, and we've done that. I'm approaching 200 trips to Europe now. I've never paid for one. Oh, let's take that back.
Speaking of mic for them.
Oh, I'm speaking to this. This doesn't work, does it? Yeah.
Those online.
Yeah. Okay. I've been to Europe many, many times. I only paid for my airfare once when I came as a student. Still coming. That's a beautiful place where my wife and I try to get every summer. Sils Maria, Switzerland, way up in the mountains. In recent years, we've spent a lot of summers in Munich. Before that, we spent a lot of summers at Zurich at the ETH, the Swiss Federal University of Science and Technology. But more recently, another 10 years there, I'm visiting professor there in the research group of a close friend at the so-called LMU, Ludwig Maximilians University. It really is the best. Why do I go to places like this? And the ETH in Zurich is the best also, because we want to get the best science. I want to learn the most I can from the colleagues in these different universities. Many, many trips to China. The Great Wall is there. I've had 2 research institutes. I started in China, Australia, many trips there. There's the Harbor Bridge and the Opera House. I don't have time to talk about that. Many trips to India. Yeah, this goes on and on. And that, let's see, what comes after that? Africa, yeah. Oh, South America. I'm taking my wife to South America in January for a few days. We have this Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, and she's a teacher, and so she gets a couple of days off, and she skips one day, and we go to. Oh, you don't want to hear about citations? No, not today. We've got better things to talk about. So I think I have used my 30 minutes, and I will say that part is over.
Thank you so much, Dr. Schaefer. Well, can we give him another applause? I think many of those who are here will agree that they want to hear your life story. Yeah, it seems like I'm a bad person trying to cut off his life story. Yeah. So can you tell us maybe within 5 minutes about your life story?
It shouldn't take much more than that. I have to get back to it. It begins when I'm in high school. I'm a very young student and a nerd. I'm a nerd early in life. Get back there. We'll get there. Yeah, that takes longer than I wanted it to. And that too. I left out the science. We left out a bunch of stuff here. We didn't leave Ted Kaczynski out. Getting there. Calculus is extremely valuable. It is. Don't. Oh, I went too far back. Yeah. Gotta get back here. I'm getting there. Oh, there it is. Okay, 16 years old. That's a long time ago. In America, we have these things called study halls. Probably if you've seen enough trashy American movies, you've seen something about a study hall. It's a place where all the students go who don't have lectures they have to take, and they're supposed to sit and study. So I was in the study hall. A beautiful girl from the grade below mine walked up to the auditorium stage to sharpen her pencil. I remember it to this day. It was sad. She did not appear at all like someone to be attracted to a nerd such as I. I've already established my nerd credentials, right, Desmond?
Yeah.
Beautiful girls like this all wanted to date guys on the football team. Well, much later turned out that she did not date guys on the football team, but that's coming. Anyway, this was sad that anybody could be that beautiful in the presence of a nerd like me. Calculus is nerds are smart. They're nerdy, but they are smart. This beautiful girl and her best friend Peggy Hicks lived out in the country, and they would drive in right past my house. Now, from my house, this is high school, I could sneak around the lake and get to the high school very quickly. But when it started to snow a lot, it dawned on me that these two girls were right by my house on the way to school. That if we had a snowstorm, and I looked like I was going to school in the conventional way on the road, maybe they might take pity on me, and they did. And I got to know both of them. Now Peggy Hicks was in love with me, but it wasn't mutual. It was the other girl who was much more beautiful, Karen Rasmussen. I got to know her. Okay, well, this goes on, and I would say we became friends. I mean, I thought it pretty neat that somebody that beautiful would make a friend of a nerd. In her she went to a different college than me. In her first year, just after Christmas, she sends me a letter telling me about all she's doing at her small college or university. And she signs it, "Your Wells Bell Carmen." The name of her college was Wells. She was calling me her Bell. I said, "Wow, this looks promising." Well, it gets better because calculus is extremely valuable. I get home for the summer, and I'm doing the kind of things that nerds would like to do. I'm taking second year German at a local college near my home in Michigan because I've taken so many nerd courses. I got behind on some of the requirements, and I'm studying to advanced place third year calculus. First year calculus, it was kind of rough for me because of my background, but second year calculus, I knocked it out, got an 8. And I was going to study third year calculus at home so I wouldn't have to take it when I got back to my tent, take a test. And so I'm loving it. I'm working problems. This is nerds delight. She calls me on the phone. Now, y'all are not of this generation. Back then, young women did not call young men on the telephone. It was not considered in good form at all. So I'm shocked already by she told me who she is. And then she asked me, "Do you know anything about calculus?" This story is true, but it's too good to be true. I said, "I actually know a lot about calculus. I've had 2 years and I'm studying right now and just loving third year calculus." He said, "Well, maybe you can help my family." I said, "Tell me about it." And she says, "Well, my brother Eric. My brother Eric, a couple years ahead of me, and he didn't even study in high school. He went to a college, didn't study there either. And in his third year at college, he decides he's going to go to medical school. Well, this is obviously absurd because his record is so bad. So he applies to the University of Michigan. His father was a very famous physician in Western Michigan, did the first open heart surgery in Western Michigan. And he thought because his father was a famous surgeon, he'd get into the University of Michigan. Well, he did not get into the University of Michigan. And so her father called the dean there and said, "What's the deal? My son didn't get into the University of Michigan." And the dean said, "Well, give me a little time, I'll look this over." He calls him back half hour later and says, "Dr. Rasmussen, have you ever looked at the academic record of your son? He isn't even close to being acceptable. Much though we love you, we can't do it." So he applies to Wayne State University, which is a much lower ranked university medical school. He doesn't get in there either. His father calls, same conversation, and the same result. But then in this conversation, the dean of medical school at Wayne State said, "But Dr. Rasmussen, if we will take your son for the master's degree in anatomy, and if he does a good job, we'll let him into our medical school." And that's what they did. So he's on his way to the anatomy program at Wayne State, but he's got to take the calculus course to get in. He has started to take calculus at Grand Rapids Junior College, probably the easiest calculus class you could ever imagine, and he's failed the first 2 quizzes. So she calls me and says, "Can you help us?" I said, "Well, maybe. What should I do?" She said, "Well, come over." And I said, "When?" She said, "Now." I was motivated. I got into my little motor scooter. I was there in a hurry. Well, I was tutoring him for 49 days in a row. I mean, this was desperate. And he got a D on his third quiz, C in fourth, B in, he got a B in the course, and he was admitted to the anatomy program at Wayne State University. Well, I'm over there, and we're friends already. And so we would hang around for an hour or so and talk about things at her home. And by the end of the summer, things were different. Now, yeah, okay, I've told you this story already. Now, she was a year behind me. The year I left, it was off at MIT, being a nerd. She became the homecoming queen. If you've seen enough movies, you know what the homecoming queen is? Come on, you've got to know what the homecoming queen is. The most beautiful girl in the school. We all knew that already. So she became the homecoming queen, which made her even more distant from a nerd. I'm thinking about graduate studies, and Caltech, California Institute of Tech, second best nerd school in the universe, or Stanford, where I'd lived right next to it. Loved campus for my PhD studies, chemical physics. Initially, I chose Caltech. I mean, where would a nerd go? I mean, I'd seen enough of Boston. Who's from Boston? Yes, people from Boston. Boston is great, but I was a poor graduate student. Anything that was nice about Boston, I never saw. I was just in the library all the time with the other nerds. But I'd done Boston, and I was going to be poor for another 3 or 4 years. So I had accepted Caltech, but the professor from Stanford called me up. This is big time recruiting. He said, Schaefer, why haven't you accepted our offer? We made you the best offer Stanford University can. And I said, well, I already accepted at Caltech. He said, that's too bad. And I said, well, but let's talk about that a little bit. I've been, this idea of being 3,000 kilometers away from this most wonderful woman in the world does it for a year. That was the plan. We're going to wait a year and get back. I said, it doesn't really sound that great. She didn't think it sounded that great either. We talked about this. And I said, I've looked into Caltech. Her major is art history. Caltech doesn't even have a single course in art history, not a major. By this time, her father's getting involved in this. They say she can get married as long as she graduates from a good university. And so I'm telling this Stanford professor, he said, Schaefer, do you know Stanford University has one of the best art history programs in the universe? I said, no. And he said, you think your fiancée would like to come here? I said, well, she might. And then he asked me the big question, is she smart? I mean, Stanford University is very prestigious. I said, she's much smarter than I am. That's not it. She said, have her send me her transcript. Now, back then, there wasn't any email. It takes a week to get over there. He calls me back 2 weeks later and says she's in. All she has to do is show up, and she can do her senior year at Stanford University. So, wow. MIT nerd marries the homecoming queen. I gave this talk in Montevideo, Uruguay, a year or two ago. And they didn't know who the homecoming queen was, but one of them had seen a lot of American movies and said to the rest that means princess. My wife did not like being the homecoming queen. She hated it. She did not like all that attention. But I said, well, how about being a princess? And she said, that's much better. That's much better. There's engagement picture. Have I been lying to y'all? And I'm a nerd. Unbelievable. There we are getting married. She is looking wow. And she is still just wow. She's looking gorgeous. And I'm looking like a nerd. Yes. Oh, wow. It was somewhat of a scandal that the homecoming queen would marry the nerd. In fact, I was lined up in front of the church, and as she is walking down the aisle, I hear some people whispering, she wouldn't. And then as we're walking out together, hand in hand on the other side of the church, she didn't. So we left Michigan pretty quickly, went to California. Yeah, and that is the story.
Wow. Thank you so much.